What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the future for Monolith Soft and Xenoblade Chronicles based off of some recent interviews that Takahashi-san from Monolith Soft talked about, where he discussed that how they want to build the brand of Xenoblade Chronicles. And I think that there's pretty much three camps when it comes to the fans out there. There's the side that wants, hey, we want Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which continues in the path of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then the next evolution. Then there's another path that says, hey, we want a brand new IP. Give us something completely different. And then there's the other path that says, hey, we want Xenoblade Chronicles X ported over, and we want Xenoblade Chronicles X2 because of the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Then there's some people that are like, give me everything, which isn't feasible in a normal amount of time, which it's taken Monolith Soft from when Xenoblade Chronicles first started up until this point, 10 years to deliver us just those games that we know about, with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Xenoblade Chronicles X. So making games takes a lot of time, resources, and effort, and they can't do everything. So here's what I think they're going to do going forward in the future, because they did say that they wanted to grow the Xenoblade Chronicles brand in those interviews. So I personally feel that Monolith Soft is going to try to knock out 3 birds or maybe 2 birds with 1 stone. I think we're going to get some type of new Xenoblade Chronicles game, but they're going to present it in a new way. It's not going to be presented like a normal Xenoblade Chronicles game. Could that be Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Maybe. Or could it be Xenoblade Chronicles X2? Possibly. Could it be Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles X2 mixed into one? That's what I'm kind of thinking. Now, if you take those two things, what the natural progression of what a Xenoblade Chronicles game is, which isn't mechs, which isn't getting into them and all the stuff that X has, if you take that and the story-wise, and then you combine that with the mech stuff and kind of put them together, that's a new style of game that Monolith Soft has never done. They've either taken the path of more of the story route with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or they've taken, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, or they've taken Xenoblade Chronicles X route, which was more so on the narrative story with your main character and all that, and more of the open world and the mechs. That's what really stood out with that game. But what if they combine those two together? That would pretty much create a whole new style of game that would give you the feeling of a new IP, but not actually being a new IP. But then you get your Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and you get your Xenoblade Chronicles X2. And if they could tie the story in, even if it's just loosely, if they can tie the story in of X and kind of make that the pseudo sequel or spiritual successor, but then also get us that narrative story that people love with Xenoblade Chronicles mainline 1 and 2, I think they can hit a home run. Now, that type of project would be extremely expensive. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but that's the reason why Monolith Soft has been adding people to their workforce. That's the reason why Monolith Soft has been hard at work since like 2016, 2017, when it comes to the main team on working on whatever they're doing next. Now, it's still possible that that is a completely new IP. That could be it based off of that concept art, guys. We cannot forget that. But based off of what Takahashi-san said recently, I think that they want to go forward with Xenoblade Chronicles. That is going to be their focus because they have built a good brand. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the best-selling game in the franchise. That game sold over 1.73 million units, and that is as of like a year or 2 ago. Nintendo has not updated the sales numbers since then, so it could easily be over 2 million, especially with how well Xenoblade Chronicles is doing on the Nintendo Switch. I'm pretty sure people played that and was like, hey, I'll give Xenoblade Chronicles 2 a shot. I've seen people said, hey, like, I played Xenoblade Chronicles, I'm just gonna buy Xenoblade Chronicles 2 right now after I'm done playing the Definitive Edition. I'm gonna hop into that one. So there's still people that are excited and interested in getting into Xenoblade Chronicles and want to continue that line of games and continue to play these games. So I think I hear what Takahashi-san is saying. If they did go in the new IP route, that could be a little bit of a break of momentum of what they're doing with Xenoblade Chronicles. They're finally starting to pick up some nice steam with the game, and I think that people are starting to really like Xenoblade. So I think that if they can take this to the next step, especially after delivering just the gem that is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, such a really good re-release of the game, remaster. What they did was just awesome with it. People are really enjoying that. You've got to capitalize on that Xenoblade Chronicles name. Now, you could have that new IP, and it could be amazing, and people could love it, and it could be great, but you just do run that risk, especially from what they've built up with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and Torn of the Golden Country, which people love that game as well, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I think that it's very important that they get this next game just right what they're doing. So I'm thinking that it's going to be a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 disguised as a 3 and X2 kind of put together and kind of go from there. But if they did do that, there's a couple things that I would like them to change, because while I love Xenoblade Chronicles X, I think it's really cool. Like, the mechs are awesome. You can fly and you can drive on the ground. I think the combat with the mechs is something that they could change up to make it feel a little bit more visceral, make it feel a little bit more Gundam, because it kind of just felt like you were still doing the same on ground combat, but just with missiles, right? Just with missiles and just with swords every now and then and stuff like that. It didn't feel more of like a Gundam control type of thing. So if they did do that, if they did bring back in mechs, I would like them to actually change up the way that combat feels when you're inside the mech. I would like it to be more hands-on and kind of like you're controlling that mech and fighting with it, more so then it's like, okay, well, you're inside the mech and now you have the same, like the arts palette and things like that, you know, and it kind of just controls the same, but now you're just in a big mech. So that could be situational too. It doesn't have to be to where you have that every single time. It could be for like certain missions, you're meching up, right? You're getting inside your mech, you're tackling these missions with online multiplayer. There's just certain missions where you need that mech where you're fighting somebody, and there's other missions where you're kind of on ground combat. So they can kind of do a little bit of a hybrid style of game. It doesn't have to be like, okay, everywhere you go, you have that mech, and then you can kind of destroy this little ant enemy with this huge mech. I mean, that's cool, and that would be great, obviously, if you can just use your mech anywhere, but I would like them to change up the combat enough. And I think it would be kind of tough to make a completely different combat style for having a mech and having that in the open world and everything like that, and also in combat at any time. So I like them to do kind of a little bit of a hybrid. Now, don't get me wrong, I would still love for them to have the mech, and then like you can kind of fly anywhere that you want and do anything that you want within the open world. Like, I still want that to be intact, but I just want the combat to be just a little bit different from what they do with the on-ground combat, so it just feels different. So it kind of makes for a more exciting gameplay experience when you do get inside the mech and start shooting people up and slashing people with swords and all of that, and even bigger enemies to do so. But there are some pretty epic times to where you are flying around and doing some cool stuff inside the mech. So whatever they can do to make that experience even better going forward, I would love to see that. But I'm also down with them when it comes to the next Xenoblade Chronicles game. I'm also down with them just kind of saying, hey, we're gonna go with like just the narrative type of experience with the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition / Xenoblade Chronicles 2 type of experience, to where you just have your people on the ground and combat's there, because I'm absolutely addicted to Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition at this point. I think the combat is really good, and if they can evolve it and kind of make it different enough but at the same time feel familiar for fans, knock it out two birds with the same stone. So we'll see what they do going forward. But one more thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was some of the stuff that they showed off on Twitter and everything to just show like the great pride that they have in Xenoblade Chronicles. So if you look at the Twitter page, they showed off this 10th anniversary of Xenoblade art, and it really just kind of goes to show you that not only are they extremely proud with Xenoblade Chronicles, but at the same time, like, they really want to move this forward. They wouldn't be releasing this art and all this different stuff that they've been doing for the 10th anniversary if they weren't proud of what they've done. And Xenoblade Chronicles has made them into the studio that they are today, which, you know, 10 years ago, they were pretty much on thin ice. They weren't really, you know, big within Nintendo. Even though Nintendo owned them, Nintendo didn't really give them the type of funding and expansion that they needed to make these huge style of games. And they were able to do what pretty much nobody could do on the Wii and make a huge open world game, a new game, not a game that was on like the PS2 or something older and then brought over, but a huge new game on that hardware. So I think that showed Nintendo like, hey, wait a minute, we've got something here with Monolith Soft. We need to invest in them. And over the past 10 years, they have been investing and been getting better and better. And Xenoblade Chronicles X was definitely a testament to that, because they created a game that nobody else created. You know, when it comes to land size and mass and what you can do, that game has unique aspects that very few developers can do, especially very few developers did on the Wii U. I don't think any other developer on the Wii U did what they did with that hardware. So to see them continue to grow and get better with their craft, man, it's very good. But I'm excited to see what they're gonna do in the future. But I wanted to speak just briefly on the timeline, all right? If they decided to make a brand new IP and what that would be, which I've discussed before, but heck, let's just talk about it some more. If they decided to make a new fantasy style of game, I'm not sure if you guys have seen that game, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, but I would love for it to have that type of aesthetic based off of the character art that we've gotten with that one picture. That would be really cool if they made an action RPG like that. Full action RPG where you're just kind of doing stuff, kind of like a mix between maybe Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, the Tales series, and other action RPGs. If they made something like that, I'd be completely down with that, and I'd love to see how their story and progression goes too, in a little bit of a different style and different setting. So that would be awesome. I mean, we don't know what they're gonna do, but I think I have a good idea based on this video here, based on what they had to say. But what are you guys' thoughts here when it comes to Monolith Soft in the future? What do you think they're going to do? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.